We've been catching on Memorex repeats. How many kids do they have? One. Oh, sorry. Facebook's in the way. Close that down. What happened? Oh my gosh. No, no, no. Let me. Sorry. Okay. I don't know if it's buffering a little bit. If it keeps it up, I'll just discontinue. Don't be doing that crap. If that happens once more, I'm going to just shut it off. And we will fix the notifications. All right, Mrs. Happy's complaint. 3 days later, the Centerville school opened for the fall. The long summer was finally over, but everyone was still talking about the cheating and the scandal at the award ceremony. No one knew for sure why the big board had fallen the way it had. Most of the parents were blaming the boys on the Rockets. Barry and the other boys were in turn blaming Daniel Bailey and Susan and John Kramer. But when they told what they had seen, none of the adults really believed them. Just too crazy. Since the field was partly dark and there was a lot of confusion, the adults gave up trying to determine how the big board had fallen. But the fact remained that the big board was down and had stayed down. Though it was a different unit, the big board in the Happy Toy Store had stopped working at the precise time the other big board had fallen. Yay. Happy Toy Store had been a busy place the day school opened. Workmen from Goliath Industries had been running tests all day on the big board. That afternoon, a long black limousine pulled up in front of the toy store. Mr. Cyrus Cutright got out of the car. He opened the front door of the store and walked in. Mrs. Happy looked fearfully over at him and then back at the big board. Big board on the wall, she said. Who's got the most points of all? The big board glowed while numbers and letters flashed, but when they stopped, it was all gibberish. I don't know what to do with it, Mrs. Happy fumed. It should be working. The mechanical part seemed functional. I've had all sorts of children coming by today trying to get their new scores. After the Bailey Boy disaster, everyone's convinced they've gotten a better rank. They're all begging to see where they are in the big picture. I thought some of the little beasts would rip each other apart. I tell you, we're missing a feast of ashes on this as long as the big board is down. The workmen left the store as Mr. Cutright walked over to the big board. The wrinkled old man stared at the board and then at Mrs. Happy. It's not just this board either, the old man said with a dry voice. The big board down at the factory was down all day too. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Irritating to me. I'll just turn the volume down. I don't mute it. I don't like it. I spoke to Mrs. Bailey about the incident. She denied everything, of course. She's not to blame, but I'm beginning to wonder about her. She had to leave work in the middle of the day to take that spoiling snitch of a son of hers to the doctor. I hope the little rank blank is sick and dies by supper time for what he did, Mrs. Happy said. I can't wait to get my hooks in him again. I've already tried, but there's an incredible cloud around him. I can't believe it. The enemy is protecting him just like those Kramer brats. Well, he didn't go to the doctor because he was sick, Mr. Cutright said and coughed. His mother wanted to have some tests run to see if he was well. Well, Mrs. Happy said, what did she mean? She didn't want to talk about it, the old man replied, but I don't like the looks of it. Usually she's such a cooperative woman. I plan to inquire tomorrow. In the meantime, we've got to get the big boards and the point system rolling again. We're at a critical time. We can't lose momentum. Mr. Smedlow has agreed to let us install one in the school, and several of the town council members seem agreeable to letting us set them up in town, at the courthouse and the sheriff's office for starters. What about Sheriff Kramer, Mrs. Happy asked. He'll either see the future and be part of it, or we'll take care of him, Mr. Cutright sneered. The important thing is not to lose the momentum we've gained. This downtime is going to look bad on your record. My record? The old woman squawked. You can't blame me for all this. Of course I can, Mr. Cutright replied. The reports have already been sent. Mrs. Headquarters is aware of your failure. In fact, I thought they may have contacted you by now. But that's not fair, Mrs. Happy said. Tut-tut, you know you shouldn't complain, the old man said with a thin smile. You fouled up at one of the worst times. We need those big boards in place and working. I've heard from the Super Bureau last night that we're getting close to the biggest campaign we've ever waged in almost 2,000 years. By Halloween, there's going to be a big push. All order companies like Goliath Industries have to be ready for the shift of power that will come afterward. So when the boss heard we were having trouble with the big boards, I thought the phone would melt right in my hand. You were already on probation for messing up the toy campaign. Well, I don't intend to have my career ruined by a few rankety-blank children, Mrs. Happy said angrily. She turned to the big board and roared out a string of curses that were so loud they rattled the front windows of the store. The big board sputtered feebly, then hummed, producing another display of nonsense and gibberish. At least the number cards are still out there, Mr. Cutright said. No one has ever been able to challenge the point system successfully for long. Even with a few pockets of resistance, they can't turn back the tide of history. They'll live by points or die by points, just like you. But I told you it's not my fault, Mrs. Happy shrieked. Mr. Cutright smiled again to see the old woman so agitated. Well, the big board giveth and the big board taketh away, he replied. And with that said, the old thin man walked to the front door. He looked once more at the big board, walked outside, and got in the waiting limousine. Mrs. Happy stood by the door, watching the car drive off. Then she walked back to try the big board again. The sniveling brats, the old woman muttered as she glared up at the mute panel of darkness. I hope they choke on their love and forgiveness, but I'll not forget. I'm keeping score, and I'll settle it too when I get my chance. I'm counting it all up, and they'll regret the day they cross me. Headquarters has to understand the problems I've been facing in this miserable little town. She looked all around the store fearfully as if someone was sneaking up behind her, and then it happened. In the static and gibberish on the big board, a white circle slowly began to form. Inside the circle was a white X. Mrs. Happy stared in horror as the white circle grew larger and larger. No, she said, it's not my fault. This isn't fair. I want to make a formal protest to headquarters that I did all I was supposed to from... As she spoke, the circle opened. There was only a short hissing sound as Mrs. Happy was instantly sucked through into the darkness. Then no one was in the toy store. The circled X disappeared. Once again, the big board filled up with a gibberish display of letters and numbers which flashed on and off in a static hum. So she's going to be turned into a crow, you know. That's what happened to that, Mr. What's his name? The Crow Nail, that was him. Anyway, alright, I read another chapter. That's 22 to 23, one more chapter, and that title of that one is... Let's see here. There was not a picture in that one. Royal Riders, chapter 23, and the final chapter. Okay. Good night.